Good evening and welcome back to Sports Talk ATL. I am Chase Earl, joined by Alex Lord, and Big Low Kuntry is with us for the first time since the Falcons season started. Hoping to have him back every Tuesday to discuss what happened and looking forward to the week prior. But since you haven't been with us the first couple weeks of the season, Big Low, well, what's your overall kind of feeling? You're 1-2. There's been some good progress, it seems, week to week. But what's your overall feeling of this team after 3 weeks?
I mean, I I think it's one of those situations, Chase, where I know that we all came in here with high expectations and everything, but I still feel good because the team is showing they're showing signs of continuous improvement. Kirk Cousins, he's looking better every week. I know before the season started, everybody was more worried about the defense opposed to the offense, but the defense is actually, the ones that's keeping us in games in a lot of situations. So I feel good. I still feel like we went in the division.
Yeah, I felt good. Not all losses are built the same. Like the whole team, the fan base, everybody felt much better losing to the Chiefs in the way they did than we lost to the Steelers in the way we did. Like that game was completely different. You come away feeling much better about it in my eyes. And if we're talking about the season as a whole thus far, just 3 games, it's so clear. We're not going to talk about that other guy that we had last year, but this team is obviously talented enough to compete. Like the Falcons are actually a good football team. And I know we're 1-2. It doesn't, feel like it, at least on paper. Kirk Cousins and the Falcons offense hasn't been, as crisp and as perfect as we hope. But again, early season gelling period. This team is talented enough to compete with just about anybody in the NFL. I mean, we just went to the wire with the 2-time defending Super Bowl champions that everybody think is infallible. Patrick Mahomes, Chiefs, they don't do anything wrong, and we took them to the wire. Probably should have won that game in a lot of aspects.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I mean, but it's hard to whenever you have 11 men on the field and the other team has 17.
Yep.
It's tough to beat.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the missed call on Kyle Pitts is inexcusable. I mean, that's textbook pass interference. I mean, if you looked it up in the dictionary, there's a picture of a play like that. You don't get your head turned around. You're in the end zone. There's a ref right there. I have no idea how you missed it. They also missed a illegal hands to the face on that play on the pass rush.
Ray McCloud.
They missed a face mask on Ray McCloud, all on the same drive. So there were a lot of missed calls. It sucks to sit here and blame the refs, but anytime you play Kansas City, you know that's kind of part of the deal, right? They've done that to pretty much every team they faced. It's not just the Falcons. It's why you have to play a little bit more than perfect. I think the biggest issue with the Falcons was the loss of the 2 offensive linemen. Once those guys went down, you couldn't move the ball on the ground. You couldn't really protect Kirk Cousins. And I know Kirk Cousins' stat line may not have looked gaudy. I thought that was the best game that he played all season.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he was under constant pressure, delivering the ball, getting absolutely mashed. I was surprised he stayed healthy with some of the hits that he was taking. I mean, it was very difficult for him to have success, and he kept making big-time throw out of big-time throw. I thought he should have had the ball in his hands at the end of the game because I thought he was cooking, and I thought that offensive line had a little bit better. They could offer a little more in pass protection, especially if Bijan Robinson was there and the improvements that he's made than they could running the ball. So I kind of didn't like, not taking the ball completely out of his hands at the end of the game. But, I mean, listen, even when you look back at that Steelers loss, which was almost inexcusable in the game plan, and Kirk Cousins obviously didn't look healthy. Look what the Steelers have done the last 2 weeks. They gave up 7 points to the Broncos, who just beat up on the Bucs, and they gave up 10 points to the Chargers, who were undefeated coming into that game. I mean, the Steelers are a damn good football team, especially defensively. And you look at the Falcons' opponents as a whole; they're 5-1. Are 8-1. They've lost 1 game, and that was the Falcons losing on beating the Eagles on Monday Night Football. So they've had a very, very tough stretch. I mean, the Steelers look like one of the classier teams in the AFC, even without really a quarterback. They're that good defensively. The Chiefs, we know them. And the Eagles come with a big win on the road against the Saints after losing on Monday night. So, yes. That's the other thing we can take solace. Both the Bucs and the Saints lose. So as much as you hate to lose to the Chiefs, especially the way that they did, you didn't lose any ground in the division, and you got those 2 guys, those 2 teams lined up right in front of you, weeks 4 and 5, Saints and Bucs back to back, to make up some ground and maybe be in the lead at the end of this stretch.
Hey man, look, and all those are great points that you're making, Chase. I mean, just like Alex said before we started the show, it would be great to be 2-1, but we're 1-2, and I mean, I know that we're in week 4 now. I understand that, but I feel like we could have been 2-1 or potentially 3-0 if we played during the preseason. I'm just putting that out there. You
I don't
know,
disagree. I don't disagree. And I think, Raheem Morris, it's not his first stint being a head coach. Everybody knows that. But in a certain sense, he hasn't been a head coach in a very long time, decade. So, for all intents and purposes, maybe he is also shaking off some of the rust. And maybe that is something going forward that he won't do. And I think with Kirk Cousins coming off the injury, first year, everything gelling in one, I think you make a very good point. And it's one of those damned if you do, damned if you don't.
yeah.
I'm of the opinion that if Kirk Cousins got hurt in the preseason, he was going to get hurt in the regular season too. I mean, that's just how I look at it. But we started 2-1 last year. Didn't make the playoffs. We all know how that ended. It's not how you start the season. And the best example for that is Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, Tom Brady and the Patriots. Those teams are always playing their best ball at the end of the season. And the Falcons, that's all you have to do. And when you're talking about Jimmy Lake, first-time defensive coordinator, Zach Robinson, first-time offensive coordinator, new pieces on the defensive side, new pieces on the offensive side of the ball. I mean, I 1-2 with the way we've looked is good, in my opinion.
Yes.
Like, it's fine. Like, continued improvement is the main focus from where I sit. Now, obviously, beating the Saints and beating the Bucs, getting those wins at home is very important. Very important. Or I think the Bucs game's away. But those are the most important games right now. And unfortunately, all of our division games are, in the first half of this season, pretty much the first half of the season. So, we got to figure it out quickly, but I don't know how anybody is a Falcons fan and is feeling pessimistic right now. Like, we're not playing our best football right now, and we are still taking these teams who are, we didn't play a perfect game against the Eagles, and we still won that football game. We obviously didn't play a perfect football game against the Steelers and the Chiefs, and we took both of those teams to the wire. So I don't know how anybody is sitting here as a Falcons fan saying, Kirk Cousins this, Raheem Morris that, the Falcons this, same old. I couldn't disagree more. I'm still optimistic. I have not seen anything that leads me to believe Falcons fans should be pessimistic.
And the crazy thing is, Alex, is like, doesn't it feel good?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not, some people say, hey, y'all have a loser's mentality. I'm not saying doesn't it feel good to lose, but I'm saying doesn't it feel good to be competitive?
It's
like
different. It's
different, right? Like, it feels good, like going into the game and saying, hey, we actually have a chance to score 20.
That's what I was trying to say. Like, last year, first few games, you watch Arthur Smith and Desmond Ridder, and you're not thinking, oh, we have a chance, we can go into this game, we have a chance to win, we're going to win this football game. It was mostly like, can we just not get blown out? Can we not get embarrassed? And for a lot of the time under Arthur Smith, that's how it was. That is not true anymore. Like I said, we have the talent to compete.
I mean, over the last 4 seasons, if we ever played a team in the playoffs or that was going to be in the playoffs, any team that had an opportunity to compete for a Super Bowl, we were getting blown out of the water. I mean, we were losing by multiple touchdowns. It wasn't much of a game unless their entire roster was injured that week. Talking about that 49ers win we had a couple of years ago against Marcus Mariota when we caught them at the right time, right? But like for the most part, if you faced a healthy team that was considered a contender, we were getting blown out of the water and Desmond Ridder was looking like crap. I want to go back to this continuous improvement that we talk about because I mentioned this yesterday when we were talking about the game, but the Chiefs are a team that's going to get better throughout the year. We know that. We know Travis Kelce might be kind of holding a little bit back, waiting for that stretch run. And you see that with a lot of great teams that are kind of thinking towards the future. The Falcons, though, in terms of their improvement, I feel like they have more room for improvement than probably any other team in the NFL because of all those new pieces we're talking about. I mean, Kirk Cousins could look like an entirely different person by week 9. Zach Robinson is going to feel a lot more comfortable in his game plans by the time week 9 rolls away.
We haven't seen the best of Kyle Pitts, Drake London, or Bijan Robinson.
Yeah, the same for Jimmy Lake. Like all of these pieces are still coming together. But I think, the level of improvement that you see for a team like the Falcons that are all coming together, there's so much room to improve. Well, if you look at a roster like the Saints, and I know everybody's big on Clint Kubiak, and I definitely think they've gotten better offensively, that roster has essentially been together for the last 7 years. Like how much greater can a team that's been together for 7 years really get from the beginning of the season to the end of the season compared to a team like the Falcons when we know these guys are all going to be better once we get towards the end of the season.
Yeah, I mean, you like. I know that this feels like a very kumbaya show, but I mean, yeah, everybody's making great points. It's like, you're right. With all, and just like you said, the man to remain nameless, with all the variables that we have going on, the new variables with the Jimmy Lakes and the Zach Robinsons and things like that. It's like, and I noticed you mentioned Bijan Robinson, you mentioned Drake London, you mentioned Kyle Pitts. I mean, Allison Chase. Am I wrong? Can we put Darnell Mooney on that list too?
Yeah.
Because
He's been
Darnell Mooney
great.
is balling
Dude,
out.
even Ray McLeod's been good.
Yeah.
Like, I've really
Yes.
been impressed with Ray McLeod winning his 1-and-1s out of the slot. I think Darnell Mooney's been great. I mean, I think this team's got a lot of pieces. I want to switch focus looking ahead to the Saints. Obviously, one of the biggest matchups of the year. This game's at home. It kind of feels it's not a must win, but it feels very close to a must win. Having those potentially two offensive linemen down, how do you think? I mean, obviously it's going to have a huge impact in the game, but do you think that they are going to have a better game plan and look better than they did against the Chiefs with those two guys starting, if that's what they have to do? Because that's a nasty Saints defensive front. Don't take anything away from them. They have a lot of flaws on that team, but that defensive front, even if they're older, can still get after the quarterback.
Yeah, I think it's going to be one of those cases where I feel like this week we really have to jump out ahead of the Saints, especially as well as the Saints have been running the ball. And just as you mentioned, as far as their defensive front against our offensive front, I think we're really going to have to get the ball out quick, and we're really going to have to rely on our playmakers to make plays after the catch. The yak yardage. We're really going to have to get it. Hopefully, there's going to be a lot of oxtails out there for us. Get some yak yardage because I don't feel like we're going to be able to run the ball as effectively as we have been those first 2 weeks of the season. I don't know if you've seen the numbers. Bijan Robinson only had like 1.6 yards a carry.
16 for 31. It was
tough
sled. I mean, it was tough sledding. I mean, there's no doubt. And the Chiefs have a great defense. It's something
the Chiefs have. They might have a better defense than the Saints. They certainly have a better defense than the Eagles. And that Eagles defense, showed out against that Saints offense last week. And if you want to play the transitive property game, the Falcons defense looked a hell of a lot better against the Eagles than the Saints did. So I think, we can all say, on paper, the matchups clearly favor the Saints, I think, in this facet of the game. But we don't know until we see these boys on the field. And that's the best thing about football is we can, play the what-if game and the depth chart game and the Excel spreadsheet game for all the nerds out there. But football's played between the lines. And if you're Raheem Morris, I mean, there has to be more urgency. And I don't even know if urgency is the word. I mean, like fire. Like, this is a rivalry. Raheem Morris knows about this rivalry. It's time to put up, shut up, and put those smelly New Orleans to the dirt.
The last time this game was played, remember the Saints pulled that BS crap where they, ran the fullback dive to Jamal Williams to get him the touchdown to run up the score when they pretended like they were taking a knee. So I'm sure that clip's being played, and I'm sure the Falcons will be ready, and hopefully they didn't forget about that. Big Low, as always, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.